tonight's workshop tries to address some very simple questions that actually can be very complicated to answer. And that is, who are we? Who am I? Who are you? What are we doing here? What is the purpose of all of this? So tonight I try to provide some guidance in a way that I hope to be more direct, but not requiring you to study so much and read through many texts, even ancient texts that are maybe written, you can say written for that time. So hopefully if I do my job tonight, then you'll understand what the spiritual journey means for you and put you on this path so that you can progress faster, a more direct approach to your spiritual journey. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to go right into meditation. The first session is always 2 meditation sessions, and it's a 5 minute, and then followed by a 10-minute. Consider it as a warm-up for people who have been here before. For those who are new, consider it as an introduction to meditation. So I'll guide you through this, and I'll state that it's always important to understand that this is just my way of doing it. This is the way I've learned from my master. This is the way that works for me, but it may not work for you. Okay, so as long as you understand the goal behind the meditation and understand the practice and technique that we're doing tonight, then you can modify it as you see fit. So I will be doing a silent sitting meditation tonight, which we have an article on our website. You can read up all about it. It's part of your email links. Do read up about it if you haven't done it before. And it begins with finding a good seated posture, either half lotus, full lotus, or even cross-legged. If you lack a lot of flexibility and it's very uncomfortable for your hips like this, then put pillows here. Or you can even sit on a bench. Okay, and there's no right or wrong way, but I would never recommend lying down because it's too much associated with sleep, and you might get the two mixed up. Okay, but some people can do it without it, but I can't. So that's why I don't recommend it. Okay, so when you have your seated posture with your legs, next thing to do is straighten out your back. Okay, even think about your back vertically expanding a little bit. Okay, it takes the pressure off your hips, takes pressure off your vertical spine, all the vertebrae, okay, and it's more comfortable. If you are sitting on a pillow, try to sit in a way that keeps your back straighter so you don't feel this constant pull leaning back or also a constant pull of falling forward, because that's what makes your back tired. So if your back does get tired throughout the session at any time, you can just relax and then stretch out a little bit and then try to find a better positioning or tilt of your body so it's easy to sit without strain on your back. Next is level out your chin so your head is not tilted forward back. Again, has to do with your neck. You don't want strain on the neck. Okay. And then have your tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front. So if this is the teeth over here, have your tongue relaxed but touching the roof of your mouth here like this. And then finally your hands, put your right hand on top of your left thumb together and try to relax your fingers. So you can relax your hands like this on your lap. Or you can also put it onto your ankle or shin. Okay, so depends on your arm length and depends on your sitting posture. It will help you determine what works the best for you. If you put it on your lap, okay, and it's very, very comfortable, then what's good about that is that it will not put pressure on your leg. If you put your hands on your leg, maybe after 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, you'll feel numbness because you have weight pushing down onto your legs. Okay, but if you're very, very flexible and you're used to it, you won't have that problem. So again, this is up to you to gain the experience on how to sit in a comfortable way for yourself. Okay, so finally, half close your eyes. Breathe deeply and relax. And what we're going to do is just go through 5 minutes here without any further instructions. I just want you to sit and then experience the meditation, see what kind of thoughts or how many thoughts arise as a result. And I'll let you know when we come out of it. So 3, 2, 1, and begin. Okay, gently open your eyes. You can extend your legs. We're going to go into another 10-minute session. And what happens in that 5 minutes probably is that you had some thoughts that enter your mind. Maybe you're thinking about your work, or your relationship, or your finances, or something like that, the mind is very active. So why we do this 5-minute session is to prepare ourselves. So it's not so like sudden, like a so extreme going to like a 20-minute session or even longer. We can do a quick warm-up like this. But also when we take a 5-minute session like this, we can observe the things that come into our mind. We can also be reminded, for those who had prior lessons on meditation techniques, can also be reminded, did we actually follow that? Okay, because when we have busy lives, we need time to ease into especially this meditation practice. You actually end up getting more out of it than immediately going into like a 20-minute or longer session. So let me now remind and explain an additional technique when we're doing the sitting meditation. Because of all the thoughts that enter our mind, we want to figure out how to reduce this mental activity. And one way that we do it is called the counting method. So as we breathe in and out, you count by 1. And you keep going until you reach 10, and then you start again at 0, and you continue. Some people will find that despite doing that and this focusing on this little mental activity, it's too much time. So a lot of thoughts still enter. In that case, you can count on every breath in and then every breath out. Okay? You can even visualize a number in your mind for each one. The point of it is to do something very, very simple and as simple as possible so you don't end up with thoughts about work and your life and following the whole trail, which leads to one thing after another. The other thing is that when you do discover that there is a thought that you're now thinking about, try to gently let it aside, okay, rather than forcefully preventing it. Okay, this has to do with your subconscious partner. So you need to just gently let it aside and go, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? What's next? Okay, and then try to keep focusing on this counting. And then with time and practice, it'll actually get easier and easier. The time in which you can settle your mind down will decrease dramatically with constant and daily practice. So in other words, if you do this once a week, or maybe only every time you come to this meditation workshop, the first 5 minutes, including the next 10 minutes, is pretty rough. Okay? But you'll find that if you have experienced it before, to reduce your mental activity through counting, you'll find that you'll pick it up again. Okay? And then by the time you do the 20-minute session, okay, you're going to be in a pretty good place. Okay? At least that's the goal. Okay, so if you find that you have many, many thoughts that keep coming into your mind, maybe you also forget the count that you're at, just start again at 0. And so, for example, you may very much find yourself getting to a 1 count and go, oh, I just had several thoughts, and I'm just going to start again. Okay, as long as you don't get frustrated from it. Because the goal is to also be able to track to see how you're doing. Some days you'll find that it's easier. Some days you're going to find it to be tougher. It depends what's going on in your life, depends how often you're practicing, etc. So let's go ahead and try that now. Get back into your sitting posture. Remember to vertically stretch your body. Think about it as using 50% of your muscles so you can sustain it over a 10-minute period. Okay, so this time I'll lead you into it a little bit differently. So again, make sure your sitting posture is good, okay, and your back is fairly straight or tilted in a way where it feels comfortable and not much strain. Right hand on top of left thumb together. Level out your chin. You can half close your eyes. You can even fully close them if you like. If you do half close them, just think about looking maybe about 1 meter or 2 meters in front of you and like almost like staring into the ground. Finally, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front. Now breathe and relax. Scan your body for tension, beginning with the top of your head. Work your way down slowly. Anywhere where you find tension, try to relax, especially around your forehead, your eyes, your cheeks. Okay, relaxing your neck and your shoulders, down your arms to your hands. Try to get them so relaxed it feels like your hands are almost floating or even disappearing. Relaxing your back and your legs to your feet. Let us begin. Okay, gently open your eyes. You can extend your legs. We'll do a very light, short calisthenics. First thing you want to do is just ruffle your legs like this. You can also pat your legs down. You can also rub them. It's just to get some circulation going in your legs. Right. Okay, now rubbing your hands together until they are warm. Pressing them firmly on your face, brushing backwards. And just brush and press firmly all around. And what this will do is massively increase the circulation all around your head, which you will feel when you stop. So relax your hands, rub them together again. Okay, cusp your hands and put them on your eyes, looking left to right. You can push your range of motion a little bit if you like, 120%. And then up and down. And then circle your eyes in one direction. Change direction. Now relaxing your hands, rolling your shoulders. Going again 100% your range of motion. Changing direction. Okay, and then bending forward, just holding your position. And come back up. Okay, and then rolling your hip or waist. Just lock your torso, your upper torso, your shoulders and your head. And change direction. So we're going to begin now and continue with our discussion about the spiritual journey. So what does it mean, the spiritual journey? This is a way of trying to actually answer the questions of why am I here? What is the purpose of all this? And why even bother with existence as we know it? So I like to define the spiritual journey as an adventure that each of us are on, and even collectively, to understand ourselves, each other, and existence itself. So another way you can think about it is understanding your place in the universe. And there are many approaches. So, for example, and a lot of people are already on this spiritual journey without even realizing it. Okay, so I'll begin with scientists, astronomy. What is astronomy trying to do? They're trying to figure out, how did we get here? How did the universe form? How did our solar system form? How did our planet get created? How come there's people and sentient beings and animals and wildlife? Why is all this here? So science actually is on this spiritual journey. It's just trying to discover what this idea of existence is. Religion. Okay, so now I'll be very careful here because there are many people with many different religious backgrounds, which I fully respect. And what I'll say is that religion also tries to answer these questions, especially about birth and death and purpose in life. Religion is also very useful, and for a lot of people, it is necessary. The other method is, the main method is philosophy, and that's the approach that I'm trying to take. Apply philosophy, which means your understanding of things, of existence itself, through the perceptions, through your emotions, and through your subconscious partner, by combining all this, it can give you a better understanding about yourself and help you further along your spiritual journey. Now, there may be many others that you can think of, other approaches, I mean. What's interesting is that no one can tell you that your approach is right or wrong. There's no such thing along the spiritual journey. It is just whatever path that you decide to take. And that path will change with time as your understanding of existence progresses. Once you are on this spiritual journey, then you will continue to ask yourself, what is the purpose? What is my purpose, your purpose along this spiritual journey? And the answer actually is not clear. And we're going to talk about why that is not clear. And then I'll help guide you to go back onto the path to try to get it to become clear. And we will take a short break first before we do that. And I would like to use this time as what I call a quiet contemplation. I give you a challenge or a question that I want you to think about, because I will talk about it in the next section. And that is, what is existence to you? What does it mean? Okay, so I'll leave that with you, because maybe the answer will shed some light in terms of purpose. Okay, let's begin. So we're going to continue now. We're going to continue now and talk about existence. So hopefully it's had some time to think about that. What's so interesting is that existence, as we know it, basically is determined by our five senses. And this comes from our perception workshop and the basic perceptual layers of sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. And you can also bring in internal feelings of our mind and our body as part of this, as these senses. And then these will form over time to more and more complicated ideas. And that allows us to interpret the idea of existence around us. So one of the things that we are very good at as humans is our ability to think logically. So that is to say, if we have one stone and we have another stone, we put them together, we can say, oh yeah, now we have two stones. And then we remove one stone, and then we have one stone left. But then some people will say, oh, but logically we still have two stones. And they're right, because it's over here. Okay? So logic allows us to deduce this and think a little bit more clearly. So I'm going to try to use logic now to either prove or disprove that existence makes logical sense. Okay, so here we go. The question I have for you that I want you to try to answer is, where does existence come from? Okay, so now, depending on your background as a scientist, philosopher, or religious or something else, you will now have an answer. You don't need to share it. I just want you to think about the answer to this question, where does our existence come from? Give you 10 more seconds to think about that. Okay, so whatever your answer is, the next question now I have is, what is the force behind that source? What is the source? What is the force of that source? Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds to think about that. Okay, and finally, I'll ask you one more question, which now becomes an endless loop. What is the force behind that force? Okay, and you'll see that whatever answer, it goes on forever, and ever and ever. Okay, there's no end to this question. Why? Because it's not logical. Okay, that's why. Infinity is not logical. That's why we have that infinity. We just say it's infinity in mathematics. It's not really logical. It doesn't really make any sense. So if we prescribe to that idea, okay, then now we can say that if existence cannot be explained, then how then can we determine our purpose? Now, some people will continue to try to find the answer to existence, but let me just change the temperature. I think it's getting a little bit cold in here. Some people try to find the answer to existence, and they'll spend their entire lives doing so. Eventually, reach a point of frustration. You can even call this suffering, because we've just shown you that you cannot know the answer. You can come up with some answer, but it'll never be clear. Okay? So in other words, it's very weird that we're all here in this room right now, isn't it? It's so strange. We don't understand why. We cannot explain it. Okay? And yet we are here. How do we figure out our purpose? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing so. We have already talked about in our perception workshop and our emotions and our subconscious a couple of ideas. One is that we have a very strong will to survive as human beings. A very strong will. We'll do anything it takes to survive. And then the other is that we are meant to be social creatures. It means we're not meant to be alone on this planet. That's why we're always trying to find a partner or friends and other people. If we do not, it goes against our DNA. Okay? And then we become anxious and stressed, maybe we feel lonely, etc. And we already talked about that. So then the only thing that right now that we can make sense of then is that we really need to figure out our individual purpose so that we can find out what our purpose is together, and then so that we can find fulfillment in life together. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this thought that our purpose has something to do with this. We have to figure it out. My job isn't to give you the answer tonight, but to guide you through it so that you can find that answer and understand it more quickly and maybe even more directly. It's a tough challenge. So I'm taking this on tonight, so we'll see what you think later on. What we're going to do now is go into another meditation session. This is basically our second main session. And we are going to try a 20-minute session. And then we'll do some more longer like calisthenics. And I'll introduce a little bit of Shaolin stretch therapy for you to help you with this. And then we'll have another break. Okay, so some of you will say, 20 minutes is a long time. 20 minutes is indeed a long time. Do your best to try to persevere through it, because you will benefit from your continued practice to experience what it's like to have a period of time, even if for a second or 2 seconds or half a second, where you have no thoughts, okay? And your mind is still and your heart is at peace. Okay, so I want you to try to think of it in this way, that it's worth trying to last the whole 20 minutes, because the next time you do 20 minutes, it'll be a lot easier. You would have experienced what it's like. And then with that experience, it may help you to get through this period of calming down your mind and your thoughts more quickly. Okay, so find your comfortable sitting position. Okay, right hand top, left thumb together. Okay, straighten out your back, level out your chin. Half close your eyes, tongue in the roof of your mouth towards the front. Straighten out your body vertically a little bit. Think about using 50% of your muscles. And before we begin, if you find that your legs are numb, feel free to extend them, ruffle them. Just try to do it with the least amount of disruption to others as possible. Take a big deep breath, and as you exhale, relax. Okay, but maintain this vertical stretch of your body with 50% of your muscles. Scan your body for tension beginning at the top of your head. Work your way down slowly through your head, your face, your arms, your back, your legs, and we begin. Okay, gently open your eyes. You can extend your legs and ruffle them. You can also pat them down. I'm going to introduce some Shaolin stretch therapy exercises for you today. A lot of my students have already done these, so you'll already know and be able to appreciate them. So what we're going to do is going to get you to lie down on your front like this with one leg bent. Sorry, people on Zoom, I'm having some difficulty. Okay, there we go. Okay, so is this one here like this? Your back leg is straight, your front knee is bent. Okay, and so what you're trying to do, and I'll just turn around over here like this. So I'm going to have to put these guys over here. Let me see, it might make a little bit more sense. Okay. What we're trying to do here is like this, and try to bring our hip down to the ground, and just using gravity. Now, if your arm doesn't feel strong enough, you can also go on your elbow. You can get a similar stretch. It's not going to be as intense. But when you're coming up here like this, we're trying to stretch on one side from the abdominal through your hip and groin down to the thigh. And you want you to feel the stretch. If you don't feel too much, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can use your back foot like this to pull yourself back without your front knee moving. Okay, and that'll intensify the stretch. But if you're not able to put your hip close to the ground, then just using your own body weight with gravity is more than enough. We just want to hold this, and we want to think about it as getting back your flexibility. So when you sit around a lot, there's atrophy that happens here. The muscles, tendons, ligaments don't get stretched out and becomes shorter on one side of your body than the other. It creates imbalance. Okay, you can also turn your shoulder and move your head towards your bent knee, and that'll also intensify the stretch. Okay, now come out of it slowly, switching to the other leg. Now, if you feel this pain, it's good pain, it means you need to do it more frequently. Do it every single day until it's gone. Okay, if you sit around for 8 hours, you will need to do it. Otherwise, it'll return. And come on, back up slowly. Have a seat again. Just going to do one more because that's all time really allows for today. Come back to your sitting posture, cross-legged, half lotus, full lotus, entirely up to you. Okay, now vertically stretch your body up, and I want you to shear your lower torso on the sides. Shearing means that there's like a pull on both sides like this. So what you want to do is think about one shoulder rising even and leading as you lean to one side. Okay, so if you don't do this and you drop your shoulder, then you get what's called decompression. You get compression on the side, which is what you exactly don't want. We want to shear, and that stretches both sides, and you can feel on the sides of your lower core being stretched out. Okay, and then you go to the other side. So just go 100% your range of motion. The motor mechanics, that means your ability to send the right signals to the muscles. Many muscles along your core is a little bit tricky. So take the time, go from one side and then the other. Again, 100% of your range of motion. We want to generate a little bit more circulation in here in our, just above our hip plate on either side. But what makes this really truly stretch therapy is when we try to push it. So go 120% of your range of motion. Use some muscles now to really force yourself to go onto one side. Okay, make sure your body is still vertically stretched upwards. And then go to the other side. And we're doing what's called a stretch hold. It'll tire out your core muscles on the side, but also increase the amount of circulation here quite a bit. Also takes pressure off of your hip plates. And then switch to the other side. We're going to do it quicker now, but more quickly, about 2 to 3 seconds. Switch to the other side, stretch hold. Other side, stretch hold. And you can also assist with your hands, get a little bit extra push, a little bit extra strain, but make sure you're still using your muscles. Okay, that is the key. On one side, stretch hold to the other. Then we're going to go forward and backwards. Okay, so going forward and then back. So you're bending your back, in one direction and then the other. So as your belly going forward, try to keep your body again vertically stretched up so you feel like strain or stretch along your belly and also on the back, on the lower back. Okay, see if you can feel it. If you relax and collapse, then you won't feel the stretch. It changes it completely. We want to be able to keep our the idea of shearing now on the front and the back. Okay, so you don't need to go 120% because what we're going to do now is shift our shoulders to one side first again, and then try to circle all the way around to the other side and towards the back, and keep going in a circular motion. You can go 120% your range of motion. You can use your hands to push, make a little extra stretch. And then change direction. And try to lead with your shoulders so you don't end up tilting your shoulders. Okay, and then relax. Okay, we have many, many stretches. So these two are really good right now and helped you to get more circulation. You feel a lot better as you stand up. So we're going to go into a 5-minute break. And I want to use this as an opportunity to do another quiet contemplation exercise. So I want you this time to think about what is your purpose? What do you think your purpose is in this existence? Okay, or another way you can think about it is why do you exist? Okay, so 5 minutes, we will continue. Okay, so we're going to continue, but as it always seems to be, right out of time, it's already 8:40. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, we're not actually even halfway through. So I may need to create another workshop for the second part. I wasn't sure because you guys have such interesting questions, and this topic is actually pretty complicated. But I think I can still do it. I may have to sacrifice the last meditation session in order to accomplish this. So let's continue then. The reason why I asked you the question of what do you think your purpose is to just get you thinking about it. And how do you actually go about thinking of it? Because some people will think about it as a particular goal. Okay? And I'm going to show you in a moment that maybe that's not the best way or most complete way of looking at it. To further this discussion now, I now have to bring in the idea of the ego self, because this is in the title of our workshop after all, and it's one of the 4 key components of the Shaolin Chan-Dao wisdom. So what is the ego self? Well, the ego self can be defined as that thing that you have that determines everything you do and say. It's like the motivation also behind what you do and say. For example, you decided to be here. That was determined by your ego self. If you decide to reject the things I say, that's also determined by your ego self. Okay, so you can also think of it as the ego self, this black box, actually is comprised of our perceptions, of our emotions, or understanding of it as well, and also our subconscious partner. So the ego self then is all 3 of these things combined together, and then includes the result that comes out of it. So this is the ego self determines how you interact with your reality. Okay, so I'm going to bring in an analogy now, because the reason why I brought up the ego self is because now your spiritual journey then, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but is then determined by your understanding of things, and that's shaped by your ego self. Okay, so in other words, if you work on your perceptions and your emotions, your subconscious partner, it'll further shape your ego self and hopefully help you to understand your purpose better and move you along this spiritual journey. The analogy I want to now use is kind of like a role-playing game. I want you to picture yourself suddenly appearing in a forest. You don't know why you're there, but you're suddenly in this in this thick forest. And you look around and there's a path in front of you. So you start walking on it because you feel, for some reason, you feel compelled to move forward. And then maybe you encounter a very thick bush, so you have to take a different path. And maybe you come upon a path that's forked and goes 2 different directions or 3 directions or more. Maybe you might also come across some challenges, like you come across a big river. How are you going to cross to continue your journey along this forest? Maybe you encounter a dangerous or perceive a dangerous animal, and then you have to deal with it. The main thing is you don't know why you're there, okay? But as you're observing, interacting with your environment, you start to learn more about it. And then it might start giving you clues about why you are there. And so your spiritual journey is very much like this. To discover that you're actually on this path. And as you're observing and trying to understand these things, and when you're on this path, you start to ask these questions. Oh, why am I actually here? What am I actually supposed to be doing? Now, I'm going to answer this in a slightly different way, or in addition to it as well. But the main thing is that we will make choices in life that will determine the next set of challenges and choices that we have to make. But in this analogy, we never know if the path that we choose is necessarily the right one. You just don't know. Okay? You can kind of get an idea, but then sometimes you'll take a path and you go, oh, that was the wrong turn. I'm going to pay the price for that now. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack and then take another path. Your spiritual journey is very much like that. So when I think about the spiritual journey, I think about it as your entire life. And then the path, the cumulative paths that you have taken along there. Some people will get a lot further on this path. Some people will be very short on this path. Okay, neither is better than the other per se. But if you are not so distracted along this path, then maybe you might be able to get further along. And if you get further along, what does that mean? Well, I like to think about your spiritual journey as one that when you are able to not have distractions, or you overcome your challenges very, very easily, or even avoid them, you take a very straight approach. And then if you're able to take this straight approach, it means that you are essentially imparting a more meaningful impact with your existence. So in other words, the way that you affect other people and even the world and even the universe, you are imparting an impact that may be considered, I'm just putting an idea out there, that is more meaningful, whatever that means to you. And everyone is going to have a different idea of that. But if we don't, I want to say one more thing, is that if you, at the end of your spiritual journey, and you look back, and you look at all the different paths that you took, and all the decisions you made, and all the challenges that you either avoided or overcame, that actually is your self-purpose. Okay? It's an accumulation of everything you've done and the impact that you've had. That is your self-purpose. So that, again, because existence doesn't make sense, you cannot know that in advance. Okay? And neither is it right or wrong, whatever you actually accomplish. But if you're not on this spiritual path and you don't try to think about this self-purpose, and which is a lot of what people do, then you end up causing harm to other people and also to yourself. Okay? So that's what I see today. And you can try to take this analogy and apply it to your news, even to your friends and your own life, decisions that you've made. How often have you actually thought about your spiritual path and your purpose? Probably not. Right? But once I put you on the path of it, and you start thinking about this, then you start observing the impacts, the energy, the chi, energy impact of yourself and around you, then your purpose becomes even more meaningful and makes even more sense. However, and this is the other half that I haven't talked yet about this, is that I'm going to bring an analogy of holes. Holes, H-O-L-E-S, holes. And these are things that we potentially can step into and then take a long time to get out of. And let's take the example of the forest. And as you're walking, you suddenly fall in the hole. But actually what happened is, and that delays your journey because it takes time to get out of it, or maybe you trip and you hurt yourself. But it's not necessarily the fact that you fell into the hole, it's the decision that you made, or the non-decision to look carefully, that made you fall into the hole. Okay? Or maybe you decided to take a path that's so dark you can't see the holes and you fall into it. Okay? Another example, you see some mud along the path. No problem, just walk through it. But suddenly you fall deep into a mud pit because you weren't careful enough to check to see it was a mud pit. So you fall into a deep hole and you're stuck. And it takes a long time to get out of it. Okay? Or the hole could be a cave in a mountain. And you go, oh, that's interesting. I want to go see what's inside that. And they say, go inside. Oh, this is amazing. And you keep exploring. And suddenly you forgot about your spiritual journey. Okay? You got distracted. Okay? So these are the whole analogy that I'm talking about. And I'll characterize it into 3 different types of holes. One is called the perceptual, let me just check the time here. One is called the perceptual belief hole. And the other one, the second one is called the emotional hole. And then the third one is the subconscious partner hole. So let me try to clarify these 3 things now. The perceptual belief hole, it may be the easiest to understand. And it's about your perceptual layers. So here is, if you haven't studied the perceptions workshop that I had that's available to you now online, then do study that, because now the things I'll say make a lot more sense. So let's talk about perceptual belief holes. The first example that I have for you is called learned. Okay, learned perceptual belief hole. Here's an easy example. If you learn that making money is important, and that somehow you learn that making a lot of money is important, eventually you may learn that making money is the most important thing in your life. Okay, I've seen this. I know people, many people like this, even millionaires. I know them. And it creates this hole that they step into, because now, instead of thinking about their purpose in life, which arguably in their mind is to make money, and is not, I already mentioned, is not right or wrong, but they decided this is it, then they cannot progress along this spiritual journey. Their spiritual journey pretty much ends with that, unless they can find a way to get through it. If making money is so important that now it sacrifices your health, because now you need to work 3 jobs to make more money that you really cannot spend, right? Then maybe you may perceive that there is a problem here. Okay, so it becomes a hole. It's taking your time. You don't have time to work on yourself when you have to spend all your time working at a job. Actually, there's interesting, I just suddenly thought of it today as I was contemplating this very thing, and there's actually a very famous Shaolin movie that took this idea and talked about it in a really interesting way. And does it ring a bell with anybody? Somebody who makes a lot of money in one of these Shaolin movies? All right, so I'll kind of give you a hint. So he actually was a Shaolin monk at one time. Then he became a businessman, and he started earning money. Okay, and then he lost touch with his Shaolin brothers. So then one day his Shaolin brothers wanted him to join them again to pursue something, which I'll mention in a moment. James knows what it is. And he didn't want to, because he's so fixated on making money. Okay? Someone drops a coin, he picks up and goes, now I have one more penny in my pocket. It's so extreme, he doesn't even want to lose a penny. He doesn't want to give it to anybody. Okay? Because that's his life now. Okay? This is Shaolin soccer, by the way. Okay? So watch that movie. It's funny because it's, even though it's a comedy, it does kind of try to bring in some philosophy into the movie. There's some really amazing lessons in that movie. The other example of whole that I have is one of knowledge itself. Some people are in the pursuit of knowledge, and they'll make it their entire life to pursue more and more knowledge. Not necessarily a problem per se, because knowledge can help advance your understanding of your self-purpose. But what if knowledge that you learn and you take from many resources, for example, there's internet, there's books, there's teachers, and you suck it all in. Okay, I'm going to like a sponge. I'm just going to learn. The problem here is that eventually you'll get to the point where you have two perceptual layers that conflict. But at such a level that you don't even see that they are conflicting. Okay? Then you get confused. So your life purpose then gets very, very confusing. You end up just purely acquiring knowledge. You don't care about anything else. Okay? I know people like that. Okay? And maybe, hopefully that's good enough an explanation. Then there's another one I think is also important to mention here, and that's fantasy. A perceptual belief hole based on fantasy. So what does this mean? Well, let's talk about creativity. One of our unique ability as human is creativity. We started asking the questions like, for example, what if we could fly? Okay, suddenly we have planes. Okay? But if we take that and we apply it to something unrealistic, then we create fantasy. For example, someone goes, what if I was a millionaire? Wow, I could have so many things, right? What if I was in an amazing relationship, better than anyone else has? Okay? Then now I may be pursuing multiple partners and being dissatisfied with my current one and keep moving on, for example. Okay, so it's kind of a bit of a relationship advice, by the way, for some couples, is to not fall into this perceptual belief hole of fantasy. Okay, because fantasy gets you into trouble, or can get you into trouble when it's unrealistic. It's better to address what you have right now before it becomes a problem, because once it becomes a problem, it's very time-consuming, consumes a lot of your energy. It's hard to move on. And when things consume your time and energy, you've forgotten again about your spiritual path and your purpose. Okay? Your purpose is now just trying to solve problems, okay, related to these ideas of fantasy. By the way, I'm going really fast. I have a lot more information on the website with the blog, which I will go live tomorrow. Okay? It'll go live tomorrow. Although it has a lot more, I also meant it to be like a summary, because my intention was to take this and talk about holes as the next workshop, and go through very, very specific examples. And I want you to bring your examples to that workshop so we can talk about it. Because when we are humble and we accept that we can see that the holes that we fall into, then you've already taken the first step to get out of it. Okay, so then there's a class of holes that I call emotional holes. And these are related to strong emotions. And they can also be related to perceptual belief holes. One of them categories, I call it excessive fulfillment. Okay, so for example, we all need to eat. If we don't, we get hungry. It's very annoying. We need to eat. Maybe we lack energy, so we need to eat. We also need to drink fluid. We need to copulate. We need to find things to do, or else we feel bored. Okay, we need to do all these things, and that's not a problem. We fulfill them. The problem becomes when we start to have excessive fulfillment. So I'll just take eating as a very, very good example. Some people will eat because it helps them generate a euphoria. Oh, it tastes good, makes me feel good. And maybe it's a good thing. But once you eat and to get that fulfillment, what happens is that next day, it hasn't solved your problem. And then you're going to eat again. But because you ate fully the previous day, today you can eat more because your stomach starts to stretch out, and your intestine starts to stretch out, and your muscles get stronger. Okay, and then you start generating more acid in your stomach. So your body's expecting more food. So you keep on eating. You end up eating more than what you need. So some people will spend their life just eating and finding more things to eat and working harder, making more money so they can eat. Sounds a little bit extreme, but there are people like this, okay, on this planet. And you can easily find them on the web. The other example is boredom. This is a really good example because I've seen this throughout my life. And some people will feel boredom for whatever reason, and then they'll find something to do to generate a euphoria to fulfill that boredom. A classic example is people like to go party, like young adults, they like to go party. It's very exciting, okay? And I'm not against it, by the way. Everyone should experience it. But when you go and party, you have really a lot of fun, okay? And then maybe you go once a week, let's say. Then throughout the week, you go, oh, I'm bored again. And say, oh, I want that euphoria again. I want to fulfill it again. So now they're going to go twice a week because, okay, in the middle of the week, it cuts my week in half. I'm going to go have fun on Wednesday. Okay? So this is why the nightclubs open on Wednesdays, for this very purpose. So they go do it. Oh, it's great. Now I can, I have good satisfaction with the whole entire week because I'm going middle of the week and then the end of the week. A month later, it's not enough. I feel bored after the day after now. What's going to happen? So I'm going to go travel, go find other ways to party. And then you end up continuing to fulfill this boredom. So this is an emotional hole. Then you spend your life and time and effort and money trying to fill it all the time. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. Because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to mention a couple other ideas. Maybe you can think of some examples for yourself. But fear is also a very common way to generate a hole for yourself. You may feel fear from any number of things, from people that you know, from your work situation, ideas that you have. Maybe you might feel like you're going to go broke. How are you going to keep yourself afloat, pay your bills? It just goes endless. So all these things can generate extremity and trying to get more than what you need. And you may do things to try to fulfill the fear or even avoid it, and it may get you in trouble and take even more of your time. Loss is also another one. Okay? You've experienced loss. Loss could be in the form of someone you know, a loved one, a family member, but it could also be material loss. Okay? You crash your car, now you don't have a car, and you feel sad. I don't have a car anymore. I had to go buy one, for example. Okay? But these examples can be taken to even more extreme. And people fall into these holes all the time and spend so much time trying to get out of them. Now, the last one is subconscious partner holes. And because of the complex nature of the idea of the subconscious partner, I'm going to leave this one alone. I'm going to let you read this online instead. I think those other examples are good enough for today. But what I do want to say then is, where do we go from here? Because is it important to be on this spiritual journey? Is it important to have self-discovery of your self-purpose, to stay on top of that? Are these things important to you? And should they be important? Because if you don't think that is important, then soon you are falling into these holes all the time. You don't even realize it. It's trapping you. Maybe your family is trapping you because you have a bad relationship with them. It's consuming a lot of your time and your energy, and that's where it's all going. It could be a relationship. It could be a job. These are very common examples. I have been through all these. I have fallen into many of these holes. It delayed me. I feel that it delayed me on my spiritual journey. Perhaps I could have done this even sooner, okay, for example. So whatever it is to you that you decide is your purpose, it will change ultimately. But your self-purpose is an accumulation of all your purposes. It's an accumulation of all the development of your ego self, which continues to change as you experience life, as your perceptions change, as you experience different emotions, as you fall into different holes. Okay? But whatever your path is, the most important thing to understand is it's neither right or wrong. If you feel like you only took 5 steps in your life, that is correct. That is your spiritual journey. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, that just is your journey. So you have to think about what it is your ego self currently is trying to determine is your purpose. Because the things you're doing and saying, the way you're spending your time, your energy right now, is supporting that. So that's one way to think about it. What are you currently doing for your purpose? Okay? Just take a track record of what you've been doing in the last week. It tells you right away what your current self-purpose is. Okay? Where do you want to be? What is holding you back from these examples of the holes? What's preventing you from moving forward, accomplishing more of whatever the self-purpose is, or whatever it means to you? The next workshop, I really want to take the time now at that time to talk about these holes, because now it will relate directly to your lives, and maybe in a more meaningful way, so that you can see that you, in fact, are in holes. Because some people will be in denial. They say, I'm not in any hole. Okay? If you get angry, that means you're in denial. It means you're already in the hole. Okay? You're already in an emotional hole. What is generating that? So that's why if you study the emotions and the perceptions and subconscious partner, you're already on that path to immediately ask yourself, oh, why did I think that? Why did I think ill of somebody? Why did I think the person is being silly? Or why is it making me feel angry? You immediately now know how to resolve that. At least think about it, take that path. But as soon as you are aware, you're more likely then to avoid it. Okay? Your parents try to teach you about these holes. They just don't call it holes. I'm just using an analogy. They try to say, okay, in Chinese family, by the way, not all Chinese family, but majority that I know, here's a whole 1,000 things to think about. Don't do any of these things. Okay? I don't want you to fall in these holes. Don't do that. And I was like, oh, wow, there's like 1,000 rules to remember. I can't remember all that. It's too much for me. Okay? Why I have the philosophy is to make me aware, so I don't have to memorize 1,000 different ways I can fall into a hole. I just try to practice so I'm aware of it, so that I don't end up falling in a hole. I can avoid it, step over it, go around it, etc. So I want to be able to impart that idea to you in the next workshop. And finally, I will give you my Shaolin Chan-Dao perspective, as I always do. You can shorten your spiritual journey by not worrying about it at all.